Okay, Noel, do you want to get started?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Noel and I am the FMP coordinator. And today we're going to go over how to present at ours, the annual conference. Last year this was an online conference, but we're having it in person for the first time in a few years. So today on the agenda, we're going to talk about some details about ours and also how to create your research poster. So a general overview of ours, it's going to be on Monday, May 20th, at the Price Center Forum. So that's the fourth floor of Price Center. Um, we're going to also give out Outstanding Mentors Awards. So I'm sure all of you have gotten the presenter registration form, and on there you can nominate your mentor if you think they've done like a really extraordinary job this year. And we will recognize them at the conference. Each presenter will also be assigned a 1 hour time slot from between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. And you will also be assigned a poster board to put your poster on that you can give a small presentation at for people who are coming in to look at your project. Also, the poster size will have to be 48 inches by 36 inches.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about making your poster and delivering your poster. So the first step is we're going to talk about the making your poster and then eventually delivering. So next slide. So one thing to think about is the purpose of your poster presentation that can guide how you make your poster presentation. The first thing is it is a visual representation of your research. You want to visually present a summary of your research. You're not throwing a research paper up on a poster board. You're not writing a novel. It's really there to aid your presentation. So it's a visual presentation. Next. And so you want to serve as a visual aid that supports your oral presentation. So although you have this big poster that has a lot of details about your research, you're also going to have a presentation portion, not formal like a PowerPoint presentation, but people will come up and talk to you, say, hey, can you talk about research? Give them a little spiel of a couple minutes, and maybe they'll ask questions that you can point to your poster about for the answers. But your poster is to support the little talk that you're giving. Next. So one thing to think about is to make a great poster, it really is about a balancing act. Next. You want it to be detailed enough that people know what your research is about, and complete as much as possible. But you do want to keep it concise. Again, you want to think about how it's not a research paper. It is a poster. It is supposed to be visually engaging. So we'll talk about a lot about how you want to keep text minimal. And so it is really a magic trick, a balancing act between detailed but concise. You want enough information on there that they get the main points, but not too much where they just glaze over and don't read anything. Next. And also think about how your poster should stand on its own. If someone was walking by your poster, they see it in a hallway, or maybe you take a little break and you're not there, they should be able to understand your research even if you're not there. They might not be able to answer all their like really tiny nit and gritty picky questions because you're not there, but they should understand your research even if you're not there to speak about it. Next. And then posters should not be overwhelming with text. It can be really easy to have a lot of text, especially if you're in the social sciences and arts and humanities. And that sometimes can't be avoided, but as much as possible, you do want to not have too much text. Next. And, oh, thought I had another bullet point there. Okay, we'll get to that. So we're gonna first talk about some design tips, and then we're gonna talk about content. So next on design tips, first you want to plan it out. You can just kind of hit through all of them on this slide. So results, charts, and bullet points and summaries. So you want to think about how you're going to design it. What are your results? If you have results, if you don't, that's okay. What charts or graphics you might want to use, and maybe what bullet points and summaries you want to use. Depending on your field, you might have a lot of different results and different charts that you part of your research, but it doesn't make sense to have them all on your poster. So you want to kind of think about what makes sense. What do I want to present for this conference? And then that can help plan out what you include in your bullet points, what you include in your summaries, and how it gets laid out. So you think about planning it before you start making it. Next. And then when you think about your flow of sections, you do want them to be logical with regard to your research, okay? A biology poster might look a lot different than a literature poster. And so you want to talk to your mentor or whoever you might be working with to get ideas on what will make sense for yours, but you just want it to be logical. You know, typically that's background, methods, results, conclusions. But that can differ depending on what area you're in. The size, usually a conference dictates, so just in general, if you're going to other conferences, they often give you a size specification that they prefer. 48 by 60 is pretty common in conferences off campus. And then for our conference, it'll be a 48 inches by 36 inches. And that's 48 inches wide, 36 inches tall. Next. Okay, so for text, you will have text on your poster, and you want to get to the point. You want to use bullet points, as you see that we're doing here. You don't want whole large paragraphs, essays. Bullet points are a really great way to minimize how much text they use and really get to the point. Font, use a standard font, anything that's really easy to read. Arial, Calibri. Don't want something that's really hard on the eyes, something really fancy or really strange. So you want something pretty standard. Next. So a guideline, depending what font you use, these might be slightly different, but just a general guideline, a rule of thumb to consider is headings, 32-point font. Any text that you have, your bullet points would be 24-point font. And then any figure details, if you have figures or charts or anything, then those could be a little smaller, 18-point font. With text, you want to make sure you are balancing it with images. This is generally easier with STEM. Usually you have graphs, you have charts, you have images, anything that's but even if you're not in STEM, you do want to try your best to balance with images if possible. I know it can be a little hard if you're in the arts and humanities, but consider ways where you can reduce your text down at least. Maybe you can have some infographics, or you can have some little, Canva graphics to help balance things out if you don't have any images with your research. Present some quotes in a fun way, not just a, boring bunch of quotes in one paragraph type of way. So just try your best with that. Next. Word count, this is not a hard rule. These are just some recommendations from different organizations and universities. 100 words per section, give or take, if you want a guideline. So if you have your background, maybe 100 words plus or minus. If you have your methods, 100 words plus or minus. Next. And then if you're, can you go back a little bit? There we go. Another thing to consider is a total word count. So whichever makes sense for you, either per section or per poster. 1,000 words plus or minus is a good guideline. Some recommend even fewer words. But again, these aren't rules. These are just guidelines. Sometimes it can make it easier to have something to shoot for or something to guide you. So if you have 800 words on your poster, great. 600, might be acceptable depending on what your research is. If you have 1,200 words on your poster, that might be a lot, but it might make sense for your research, especially if maybe you have interview quotes or something. And so you always want to consider your research and how that fits in with these word guides. They might not work exactly for you, but they're there to guide you. You certainly don't want 5 words, certainly don't want 3,000 words. Okay, next. So some design tips for images, photos, and figures are really great to tell a story. If you have them, they really are visually engaging. They help people understand your research. But you do want to use them with a purpose. You don't want to just throw photos up there to throw a photo up there. You don't want to throw a chart up there to throw a chart up there. And and then you do want to, as I've said many times and we'll say 100 times, you want to balance it with text. You want a nice balance between text and photos. And by photos, I mean charts, graphs, figures, whatever it is in your area of research. With color, you want to limit it to 2 to 3 colors. And that is within your poster. So if your outline of your poster is blue, and then maybe you have your headings as red, you've kind of hit your 2 colors. Or maybe have your background as purple, and then maybe your border is red, and then somewhere else you have pink. You've hit your 3 colors. Okay, you don't want too much color. It can be overwhelming. It can make things just really confusing for the reader. So don't be afraid to minimize the color. It makes it more visually appealing. Also, well, with the one exception, if you have some different charts and different graphics, you might need more colors because you might have 10 data points and you don't want them all to just be red and blue because then you can't understand what's going on. Or maybe you have something like a picture of something from the sky or the microscope or something. And if it's only 2 colors, you have no idea what's going on because it just looks all the same as if you're colorblind. And then in those cases, multiple colors make sense and are necessary. So if your chart is, say, 2 colors, you have not your chart, your poster, maybe you have a white poster and you have some gray boxes, but you have a figure that has 8 colors because it's necessary to understand what's going on. You have like red, blue, and purple, yellow, and green. That's acceptable. Having multiple colors in those instances where it absolutely is necessary for the reader to understand the differences of data or the differences of what is on your chart, on your poster, that's fine. Use white space. White space isn't necessarily white. It can be a different color, but it's just this empty space on your poster. You don't have to fill your whole poster left to right, top to bottom with text or images. You can have empty space. And so you can see on this PowerPoint, well, in this example, it is white. The white space that's behind the text. There's a lot of empty space. I could have thrown up a giant picture on the lower right corner or the top right corner, but I didn't because it's not necessary. It would make it too cluttered. Next. Okay, this is an example of a poster, just to give you an idea of what a good layout looks like. So on the top, we have the title. The title is a bigger font than everything else. Below it, there is the authors and the university. And then we have a background information, hypothesis, results, summary. So one thing that you can see is there are only 4 colors, depending on how you count. We have blue, red, black, white, and variations of those, light blue, light gray. And there's a balance. There's some text, there's some images. And the images are big enough that you can read them. So that's one thing where you want to think about and be picky about what graphics you use. If you use too many, they can be way too small and you can't read them. So this is a good representation of what a visually appealing poster may look like. And we'll go through some other examples and details in a little bit. Next slide. Okay, so this is just pointing out some of those things from that last one. The title is 80-point font, the headings are 32, text is 24, and the figure details are 18. And one thing to think about is your poster should be visible from 10 feet away. You shouldn't have people have to be up right against the poster to be able to understand it or read it. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay. Oh, right, okay. Okay, now we're going to talk about each section specifically. So these are the sections we'll talk about: title, authors, logos, abstract, introduction, background, hypothesis, methods, results, summary, references, and acknowledgements. Next. So for title, you want your title to be informative. You want people to understand what you're talking about. And ideally, you want it less than 2 lines of text. If it's more than that, then it takes up way too much space on your poster, takes way too long for people to read. So less than 2 lines is ideal. For author, you want your name, you're the presenter. And it's customary to include anyone else who's contributed significantly, especially those in STEM, lab members, PI, people who have contributed notably to that research. You want to include them. And then you include affiliations. So just pick on somebody here. Anna Zamudio, UC San Diego. From all of you, it'll be UC San Diego. But if you're at another conference outside of campus, then you'll see posters and they'll say, you know, John Smith, California State University, Long Beach, or Susie Johnson, San Diego State University. So you want your affiliation on there. And then you want logos, and a lot of these you can pull off websites or email people, but you want your university logo, the kind of boring UC San Diego logo with the line underneath it. The program logo, for those affiliated with a program, the McNair program, grab the McNair program logo off the website. The Trellis program, grab the Trellis program logo. FMP, grab the FMP. All of those are on our website. And if you can't find them, you can reach out to us. And if you're supported by a grant, if you know that you're supported by a grant, for example, your PI might have an NIH grant, then you can include information about that as well. Next slide. And as I'm talking, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I don't mind being interrupted in a polite manner. We don't need to wait till the complete end if something pops up in your mind. So abstract, your abstract can take up very, very valuable space. And so I typically don't recommend people to put their abstract on their poster. And this one, for hours, do not include your abstract on your poster. But this is an example of full abstract. It eats up 1/3 of the poster on that left-hand side. And even a tiny abstract takes up really valuable space. In most conferences, your abstract is what gets you into the conference. So it's not necessarily for the abstract to be on the poster. Next slide. So introduction, background, this is usually the first section of your poster, no matter what field you're in. Introducing your research, a little bit background of the research topic. Should be very brief, couple bullet points, and it's really meant to hook your audience into what they're going to learn about. Next slide. Next. And then you might have a hypothesis. Maybe this kind of blends in with your introduction, if that makes sense for your field. All these that I'm talking about, if something just really doesn't make sense for your research or your field, then it's probably not necessary. Okay? If you're doing some sort of dance project or music project, you might not have a hypothesis, so then you don't need to worry about it. But if you do, keep it brief. And this is an area where diagrams are often very, very helpful, equations, if that makes sense for your field. Next. And then methods, this is details of what you did or what you're doing, depending on what stage you are in your research, what you're doing to answer your research question. How are you collecting data? How are you going to analyze it? The details depend on the audience. So for ours, you want to make sure that it's understandable by a good general audience, okay? You're going to have a lot of people there who don't know your field. They're not experts. If you're going to a conference that's specifically for your field, then the complexity of how you write things can be higher. The details might be lower because they might know exactly what you're talking about. And so you want to think about your audience when you're preparing these posters. And same with everything else. But methods, how are you answering your research question? What are you doing? Next. And then results and findings. If you have any results and findings, 3 to 4 main findings. If you have a lot, if you don't have that many, then that's okay. You just do what you have. But sometimes people might have an abundance of findings, and so you don't want to put them all on a poster. That's too much. You want to group and organize them logically. What makes sense for you? Easily understandable figures. You want your figures to be simple. You want them to have clear labels, nothing super, super, super complex. If you do have complex figures, reconsider using them and if you do decide to use them, have a separate caption that explains them. And then just remember that you present the findings. You don't need to type out an explanation for the charts and graphs on your poster. They're just a brief little summary explanation underneath, but the full explanation will come from you orally. Next. And then summary, restate some main takeaways, a couple bullet points. Next. References, don't forget your references. And the font on the references can be a little smaller than the other stuff because people don't need to read your references from 10 feet away. That's only if they really, really want those, they can get up close to your poster. So if you're running out of room, it's okay to make your references a little smaller. And any acknowledgements, PI, your mentor, any significant people, funding program, if you're, it's good to include, especially if you're low on content. If you're running out of space, then that can be kind of written a little smaller, maybe as like a footnote, or it's also included in the title, so it's not as critical. Next. Okay. So this, okay. This is an example of a chart that would be on a poster, and I gave the answer away. I was going to have you guys tell me, but this doesn't have the right animations. But as you can see at the bottom, there's just a lot of text compared to the chart. It's like half text. No one's going to read that. It's just like blah, 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 blah. And so you don't want that much text explaining your chart. So it would be better to have your charts bigger and minimize your text, really get to that point. And if you notice in the middle there, figure 2, rock inhibition, that's the title of the chart. That is really hidden. So people have to go searching for it to figure out what this chart is about. So let's make it a little better. Next slide. So this is the exact same information, but presented in a much better way, much more visually engaging, easily digestible. We put the figure title on top and it's bigger. People understand what the figures are about. And then the little explanation of the chart at the bottom is simplified. It just gets straight to the point. All the other stuff can come from the presenter. And by doing this, we made those charts a little bigger as well. So this is a good example if you are in a field that has a lot of graphics like this, on ways to make them visually engaging and have that nice balance between text and images. Next slide. Okay, so this poster gets a thumbs down. Now I want to hear from you. What do we criticize about this poster? What isn't great about this poster? Throw it in the chat or you can unmute yourself, whatever you prefer. Too much text. Text is so small, so small. Too much text. Too much text, can't read the small font. Pretty overwhelming. Images have no color. Good. Images are too small. Good. And I see posters like this when I do see posters. I see like them like this all the time. Just people, they didn't get good advice, didn't get good mentorship or something. But there's color. There's color on the picture of this cancer center, I assume. There's some blue headings. So they do have a color printer, but none of their graphics are in color, which makes them really hard to understand. A dark gray, light gray. These are some of it. It might just be how the it's something they can't control, but it's good to have color to break things up. And yeah, too small, can't read. Okay, good. What's good about this poster? Anything positive? Nothing positive? Throw it in the chat. Okay, we have text. We do have text and images, technically, yeah. Interesting topic, yeah. The title is only 2 lines, so that's good. Anything else? Okay, some basics. They have headings, abstract, introduction, results, conclusion, acknowledgement. So it is in a logical format. They are, yeah, good flow. Good flow. Missing methods. That's kind of awkward, but good flow. They have headings, good font size on the top, but everything else could be modified. They do have the logo. That's good. Next slide. Will we be able to get access to these slides? Yeah, you should be able to get access to this and a recording. Okay, so this is another poster. This one is in Latin, gibberish, so I don't expect you to understand anything. But how is this poster better than the last one? Good balance of text and images, some white space, good. Sections have borders, which makes it easy to read. Good eye for that one. I like that. Right, that blue in the background, it's blue, but it's white space, so that is visually appealing. Color scheme makes the subtopics pop out. Yeah, good use of color. Balance. Okay, any ways that we could make this even better poster? Too many result sections. Result. Could use a method section. I'm not sure why that's not included. Images are small. Good. Could make those images bigger. Yeah. Less text, more bullet points. So if some of these paragraphs were bullet points, we could have less text, and then we could in turn make the graphics bigger. No axis on the graph. That's a good catch. Yeah, always make sure you have your labels on your charts and your graphs. Good. So we're getting better. Now, next slide. Okay. Now this one's kind of an extreme example of a good poster, I will say. I've never seen one with this little amount of text, but it's definitely in the right direction. So what do we like about this poster? We don't like anything? Okay. Great image. Oh, whoa, whoa.
Easy to follow.
Easy to follow. Good. Great image to text ratio, more organized, concise. The charts are big. Yeah, we're still missing like labels on the charts, but that's probably because it's not a real example. Good numbers of colors. Good. Yeah. So most of the time when I see posters like this, there's a little more text, but it's still a good example. Good title size. Good. Okay. And so I would recommend Googling posters in your area. For example, if you're in neurobiology, neurobiology poster presentation example. If you're in humanities, depending where literature poster presentation example, sociology poster presentation example, engineering poster presentation example, to get ideas on what posters look like in your field, because they can look quite different across fields. If you are in, I don't know if anyone is in sociology or some of the social sciences, I would even go as far as the methods, if qualitative, sociology qualitative poster example, or sociology quantitative poster example, to get some ideas on what things look like and flows. Because again, a poster in engineering can look greatly different than a poster in sociology. Next slide. So some software that you can use to create your posters. I personally haven't used most of these. These are just recommendations that I have received. So PowerPoint and Google Slides is a great way to create your poster. Adobe Illustrator, some open source alternatives, OpenOffice, Inkscape, and GIMP. And for charts and diagrams, Glyphy or Lovely Charts. I don't have any stake in any of these or any particular recommendations. These are just things that I have been told. So if you have something else that works for you, or maybe in your department, your lab, something that they use, feel free to default to that and ask them what they use. There might be things in your field that make more sense than one of these, but these are some recommendations. Next slide. So we talked about the content, we talked about the visual information, and now we're going to talk about delivery. So after you make your poster and you get poster printed and then put it up, now you have to deliver it. Next slide. Okay, so first and obvious, be present at your poster. Don't go hide in the bathroom for the hour. You want to be standing next to your poster. Know your audience. Okay, if know that your audience is someone who knows, if you're an engineering student and an engineering student comes up and talks to you, then you know how to speak to them a little differently. Whereas if it's someone who's a literature student, then you might need to change how you present information a little differently. You want to point out your visuals, but not your text. People can read the text, but if you're talking about, oh, well, these results show blah, 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 you want to point to that particular chart, what you're talking about. You want to point to the, the bar graph that you're talking about at that point, or if you're talking about a change in something, point to that as you're talking about it. You can consider supplemental information if you want, a handout, or if you have a tablet with something that's not expected or required by any means, but something that some people find useful. You don't want to block your poster. Don't stand in front of your poster. You're going to stand to the side of your poster and you're going to point to things as you talk about them so people can actually see them while you're talking. And you do want to be professional, dress, hygiene, body language. It's not a black tie event. You don't need to go out and buy something super fancy or new for the presentation, the conference, but you don't want to show up in yoga pants and flip-flops and a gym tank top, right? You want to be professional. Some nice slacks and a dress shirt or a skirt or a dress, if that's what you like to wear, or even some nice jeans and nice shoes. A nice shirt can be acceptable. Hygiene, just make sure you shower that day. And then body language, just make sure you don't look bored, you don't look irritated, you're not arguing with people. Just be professional. Next slide. So this is an example of how you'll stand at your poster, and this guy is talking about something in that left-hand corner. He's pointing to it, so he's not blocking it, he's not facing it, he's off to the side pointing to it. So if you are talking about something on this side of your poster, you stand on this side of your poster. If you are talking about something on the other side of your poster, you stand on the other side. If you are talking about something in the middle, you're trying to point to something in the middle, then use your best judgment depending how long your arms are. Next slide. There you go. Example. Next slide. And we're done. Okay. That was good. Any questions about reading your poster, presenting anything in general or specific to the hours conference?
I'm wondering, will we have like a workshop or something to like I did see the link to sign up for like the poster registration. Will that be the only workshop we have where we work on those posters together?
I'm not sure. I think this is the only workshop, right, Noel?
Yeah, this was the registration for like this workshop where you can ask like questions in person. But otherwise the design of like the poster is up to you. This is more of like how it's standardized and formatted for conferences.
And one thing I did forget to say that I want to emphasize is a lot of you won't have results, your research project's not done, and that's okay. You put on your poster how far you've gotten, right? Maybe a preliminary result. So instead of results, you have prelim results, or maybe you're still collecting data. So you have a more significant method section, or maybe a expected results section, maybe a deeper hypothesis section, or and just think about what you've done. You don't have to worry about being completed or comparing how far you are to other people. That's completely expected and normal.
I am curious, I guess where how everyone else is doing, like on the like research paper.
Well, this is not just McNair students, so everybody's kind of
Oh.
in completely different spots.
Okay.
Yeah. But I will say for the McNair students, they are should be kind of in the middle, not completed by any means, and many students probably don't have results yet, maybe starting to get some data collection. Whereas other students on this Zoom call, they have like their researchers from last quarter before. So everyone's kind of in a different boat. So
Yeah.
let's see here.
Somebody asked, is there a way we should go about making the posters? I.e., is it like a collage from a high school science fair, or is it meant to be printed on a one piece like the posters displayed in some STEM buildings? It's gonna be
Yes.
one poster. You make you compose the image digitally, and then you'll send it to a printer to be posted as like printed as like one big poster. And this person asked, where can we print our posters? So we actually got in contact with the local printer called Replica San Diego. And when I send out these slides, I'll include the information there as well. But they've printed with other groups at UCSD, and the guy who runs it I said that if you mention that you're going to be presenting at ours with URH for this conference, he can give you a student discount for $45 for the big poster. Other places you can also get stuff printed is I know Imprints is on campus. It's like or Triton Printing, and then you can go to other places like FedEx or Staples to do like large scale poster printing.
Are we doing any printing, Noel?
We are doing some printing, but for students who are required to present at the at hours.
That's FMP students and McNair students are required to present, so it might be possible to print through us in our department. So you'll just need to talk with Noel about that. Any other questions?